the write-up and guidelines for this assignment, and just to review what they are, I'm wanting you to find 5 to 7 objects that you can hold in your hand at the same time. So they can be leaves, usually leaves, flowers, pine cones, things like that, even little knickknacks that you might have around your house. When we do this assignment in class, when we're meeting in the art building, um, I ask my students to go out onto the beach and find 5 to 7 objects they can hold on their hand just by looking around the beach and wandering around the building. We also have a bunch of tubs and drawers in there with other objects like chicken bones, feathers, clam shells, lobster shells that students choose to work from. So when you find your 5 to 7 objects, I would like you to send me a photograph of them so I can see what you're drawing from. I just want to have a visual reference to what you're working on, and in order to help me help you push these drawings along. So when you find your objects, you're not going to set them up like a still life like you did for the midterm. You're going to respond to the shape, the value, and the texture, and you're going to arrange them on the 18 by 24 drawing paper in a way that you find interesting. So all the work that I'm about to show you, um, excuse that, all the work I'm about to show you, these students worked with that process. Now, some of them chose to work with just black and white and grays, and then some chose to work with a little bit of color, and then some chose to work with a lot of color. So we're going to go, I'm going to ask you to control the color when you first drop it in. But I want you to start these drawings with Willow charcoal, and so that you can move through them easily and move things around, since we've been talking about Willow charcoal um, being so forgiving, and you can take it off the paper and whatnot. So this is a student from maybe 5 years ago, and they found some objects out on the beach. And you can see just how they chose to describe these objects, which we've been talking about. Now, the things we want to keep doing is creating surface undulation, and we get big time surface undulation right in here. You can see how that area drops back. These areas come forward. This object right here really comes forward big time. And that guy sits back a little bit. That sits behind it, obviously. That behind it. And then the farthest point we get back is in here. So there's some really beautiful going on in here. We've been talking about economy of mark making, right? So they do not get into describing this really big time. There's a beautiful, this drawing really breathes in a certain way in terms of their decision making process. All right, so there's that one. Now let me get over into here and go with this guy. Now this guy was also done by a student maybe 5, 6 years ago, and maybe a little bit more. There we go. And oh, did we lose that? No. And they decided to go with black and white, Willow compressed, and India ink. And they just found a bunch of leaves and worked that way. Now, this is a really beautiful drawing too because of surface undulation as well as eye movement. What happens in here with the whites on the darks and then the darks on the whites over in here. And look at how this comes up from the bottom right into the center, and this comes up from the bottom left into the center, and then goes out into that direction there as well as up into there. There's some really beautiful surface undulation going on here where things drop back, areas drop back, areas come forward, as well as some really beautiful textural development in this guy. All right, so the last one from working with black and white and a limited palette is going to be right here. And this is from maybe, same time period, 5, 6 years ago. And so Lynn Marquis, she decided to work from, she found some birch bark that was rolled up. She took the idea of the spiral on those little periwinkles and manipulating them down in here and up in here. This, I believe, is an old crab shell or clam shell. That's what that is. Not sure about that. When it came to the color, Lynn wanted to really go in there and stay with a limited color palette. And we've talked about this a lot. I remember this, talking about what colors to choose. And she said she wanted to go with a purple in the birch bark, right? And then some white and then a soft blue in there. And she really controlled it. This is like we've been talking about, surface undulation, as well as whether the imagery is like right in your face or you're seeing it from afar. Lens is pretty much in your face, but as you can see, she really developed these movements in here. We're talking, it gets a sense of volume in here because of the marks in here. So I think she did a great job on it. Now let's move on to some other ones, right? As soon as we can move this along. All right. Let's get into this bad boy. Yep. So can't remember the student's name here. However, they totally got into it. And there's a type of a minimalist approach here, but if you zoom in and look at that yellow, you can see the brown paper that we drew these on coming through. Now, they took the idea of this pattern here that they found on an object they were working from, and they just used that pattern, repetitive pattern, to build this out. Now, I believe I remember talking to them thinking like, okay, this is spiraling out. Does it want to spiral out up and through here all the way out to those edges? And I think that would have made a difference to this, right? Look at that red, how that pops through in there big time. And then here is some seaweed, right? So they didn't draw the seaweed. They just used the form of the seaweed as a design element, right? And then this is a branch off one of the bushes out there. They used those as a design element to generate eye movement, right? All right, so let's go to this bad boy. All right, so this guy, make that a little smaller. There we go. All right, you guys, you know you can zoom in on these, right? Because I'm going to share these with you as just images. All right, so responding to a texture they found in one of their objects, responding and taking liberties with a crab shell, right? Not sure where this comes from, maybe the seaweed, and this also. But look at what happens in here. Look at how these objects are right up in here, very close to us. That's the closest object that is in the drawing. That's the closest object to us in the drawing. Look at how far back this pops back in there. Now, that guy and that guy want to really push back, which I find really exciting. And if you blur your eyes a little bit, you're going to see like these lighter areas grouping up and then the darker areas grouping up. And that sets up a really interesting composition in this drawing. All right, there's lots of development in here, so I'm going to really encourage you to zoom in on these and take a look at them, okay? Let's go to two of what probably are two of my favorite. And this project's been going on for a long time. Let's go up in here to Abby. Abby was, not sure when Abby was working on this, but she actually found some of these objects out on the beach. This is again something like a seaweed that she picked up on, or something that was out there, natural grass, maybe a fiddlehead or something, a piece of driftwood. And then she asked me about bringing in a piece of jewelry from her grandmother. And she worked it really well into here. And I love how these guys sits down in here and has that dark halo around it. And then this guy wraps around that seaweed. Now, she didn't set this up as a still life. She invented this as she went along. And there's some really beautiful stuff in here, like what happens here in relationship to here. And that yellow in here popping through in that corner a little bit. So this is really, it starts to really sing in here in a certain way, okay? Now for the last one, and I think this one is really quite the drawing, to tell you the truth. And let's back out of there a little bit. There we go. All right. This is done by Orion, and I can't remember his last name, and it was early on when I was developing this assignment. Seaweed over here, twig here, a piece of driftwood, and then just a lot of invention in here. And he decided to go in like really light in the beginning. You know how I've been talking to you about going, oh, light in the beginning of a drawing so you can move things around? He really held with that for a long time and allowed this drawing to develop in its own way, right? And so I think also the brown paper comes through tons. He utilizes the white in a really great way, and that really starts to sing over in here, right? The red is like these beautiful accents here and up in here, and then even over in here, right? So it's not like slammed with red. I think they're very strategically placed to help generate eye movement and compositional energy. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're going to be working on. Any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. The assignment, just to recap, the assignment is for you to find 5 to 7 objects that are small and you can hold in your hand, and you're responding to the shape, the value, and the texture. I'm going to want you to start with going in with the willow and keeping it loose. There's more parameters to this, or more suggestions about this assignment, such as you can go with put um, sheets of the 18 by 24 together, so you have 3 drawings that are like right next to each other that form a long rectangle, either horizontal or vertical. We're going to be messing with that a lot in here. So I think you have tons of options in here. And what I'm really expecting from everybody is for you to really challenge yourself and develop these drawings. Just don't move through them as if you need to get them done to just finish off the semester. Really spend the time and energy developing your imagery, and have a dialogue with me when you're working through this, all right? You know that I will respond to your drawings and paint drawings by sending a screen recording back, okay? Any questions? As I said before, any questions or concerns, let me know. All right. Thanks a lot, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.